I am a lawyer. I'm a partner in the Complex Appellate Litigation Group, and I am also in space law. So I do appellate law and space law. And so basically I like to solve problems, and the tool I use to do that is the law. And so as an appellate lawyer, I'm placing my clients' cases in the stream of the law, telling the courts sort of where it fits and why it makes sense to decide things in favor of my clients. And on the space law side, I'm setting the rules of the road for humanity's expansion into space. So it's not litigating or taking things to court just yet, but it's setting out what is the framework that will govern our behavior and our activities in space, and sort of what's the best way to do that. As an appellate lawyer, I handle make or break cases for my clients before the court, so I can set industry standards and sort of make or break things for particular industries. As a space lawyer, I'm helping our space economy function in large part, currently a $600 billion industry that will continue to grow in the next few years. And so in that way, I'm helping set policy and helping foster the space economy. So I would say, in short, the challenges in both cases are persuasion. That's sort of the tools of the trade for a lawyer. So persuading courts and persuading policymakers and all of the stakeholders in space, which are it's really an international proposition at that. So in the next 10 years, approximately, the entire legal framework for space will be set. The rules of the road for how we operate in space and the framework on both an international and domestic level, the basic outlines of it will be set. And so, so that's what we're working on right now. In space, the work of the government and the work of private industry are both intertwined and parallel. So there's obviously government regulation, but there's also government funding for various initiatives and the work of the companies. And so it's much more intertwined in activity as well as regulation. And how you can foster that is really collaboration at the international level and collaboration domestically in figuring out what are the best ways that we can balance really all of the interests that we have in space. National security, of course, fostering our commercial space industry, which is a set national policy and one that we have already adopted several years ago of wanting to do that. So how do we do that in the best way that enhances things or humanity overall as well? And the key about the collaborations is usually when you think about that sort of government, public-private partnerships or relationships is that it's domestic only. But space law is unique in that our international obligations and what the UN does really impacts what we do domestically. So it's tied together. We must fulfill our treaty obligations, and the government has obligations with regard to authorizing and supervising the work of commercial non-governmental space entities. So it's a little more complex, I would say, than other settings. There really needs to be a dialogue between the policymakers and the private industry. And as I mentioned, at this level, that is a very broad perspective. You know, we're having those conversations at the international level and at the domestic level. And I'd say right now that's happening because the law in the past has really presumed that the only actors in space are governments. They were the only ones brought to the table. They were the only ones part of the treaties and the agreements. So now we know there are many more actors who are independent in some ways, the independent private actors, not totally beholden to the priorities of government. And so they're being brought to the table, even though there may not be a formal seat at the table for them just yet. So at the UN, actually this fall, I'll be going to the first commercial space lunar activities conference that the UN is hosting, wanting to understand what are the activities, what do you need, what do the companies need, which are the priority rules of the road so that the companies in doing what they're doing can do it well and can coexist and work together well on the moon. And so you need that input. You could be making laws for things that just either aren't going to happen or they're not going to happen for 10 or 20 years. And we need to prioritize those. So the only way to do that is to hear from the people who are doing that. And the US is the same way. The Department of State has started to have commercial space roundtables and inviting a lot of input from industry. So I think where we are now, where it's going, is kind of where it's going to go even further in terms of public-private dialogue and making sure that the policy is meeting the moment. I would say lead with the law. So space law is how we will ensure that the new frontier is not the Wild West, but actually a place of law and order. And we need law and order and some kind of sense of how things are supposed to operate and how we interact in space in order to have a thriving space economy. If there's chaos up there, it's not going to be very helpful. So it helps frame the rules of the road for that. And part of that process is a collaborative process. As I mentioned, collaborative with the actors in space, collaborative on an international level, because space is not owned by any country, and so we all need to kind of work together to determine how we're going to move forward and how humanity is going to expand into the universe.